For 2,600 years, it has been missing. The most sacred object in human history, 3 feet 9 inches of acacia wood overlaid with pure gold, 2 cherubim with outstretched wings. Inside, stone tablets inscribed by the finger of God himself. The Ark of the Covenant. Archaeologists have spent lifetimes searching. They've dug beneath Ethiopian churches, explored caves in the Judean desert, mapped tunnel networks under Jerusalem's Temple Mount with ground-penetrating radar. Indiana Jones made it Hollywood legend. Conspiracy theorists claim the Knights Templar found it. Others say it's hidden in the Vatican's secret archives. But the truth? No one knows. The last verified mention appears in the second book of Chronicles, when King Josiah ordered the Levite priests to place it in Solomon's temple around 620 BCE. Then silence. When Babylon's king Nebuchadnezzar razed Jerusalem in 586 BCE and looted the temple's golden treasures, the ark wasn't on the inventory list. It simply vanished. Did the Babylonians melt it down, ignorant of what they destroyed? Did Jeremiah the prophet hide it in a cave, as ancient texts suggest? Or did someone else, someone whose name history forgot, make the impossible choice to save God's throne while the world burned? This is that story. Jerusalem, 586 BCE, 14th year of King Zedekiah's reign. The city is dying. From the ramparts of the Temple Mount, you can see the Babylonian siege towers inching closer like iron monsters. For 18 months, Nebuchadnezzar's army has encircled Jerusalem, a noose of bronze shields and battering rams slowly tightening. The wells have run dry. Mothers boil leather straps to feed their children. In the streets, bodies lie where they fell, because no one has strength left to bury them. Inside the temple complex, the contrast is obscene. Gold. Everywhere, gold. Lampstands cast from talents of pure gold catch the afternoon sun. Golden censers still smoke with frankincense, though the priests who swing them have sunken cheeks and haunted eyes. The altar of burnt offering gleams, freshly polished, though there are no more rams to sacrifice. The last livestock was slaughtered weeks ago when the starving populace stormed the temple courts. And in the Holy of Holies, behind the veil no common man may pass, sits the ark, untouched, untarnished, gleaming in the darkness like a promise God hasn't kept. At least, that's what Asher thinks as he stands in the court of priests, staring at the curtain he's spent 53 years serving. His hands tremble not from age, though he is old, but from a question that has poisoned his faith like rot in a foundation stone. Where is God when empires fall? The high priest had claimed, "The Lord will deliver us as he delivered us from Egypt." But Egypt's chariots drowned in the Red Sea. Babylon's chariots are made of iron, and they do not drown, they crush. Asher polishes a golden vessel, a ceremonial basin used for washing sacrificial blood. He can see his reflection in its surface, a gaunt face, white beard stained with soot from the fires burning in the lower city, eyes that once blazed with certainty, now dim with something far worse than fear. Doubt. And doubt, for a priest, is a kind of death. Outside, a trumpet sounds 3 sharp blasts in the Babylonian style. Closer than yesterday, closer than this morning. The end has come. Asher wasn't always this way. There was a time, decades ago, when his beard was still black and his back still straight, when he believed every word that fell from the high priest's lips. When he entered the temple courts at dawn, he felt it. The presence, the weight of something vast and holy pressing against his chest like a hand. The air itself seemed different inside the sacred walls, charged with invisible purpose. He remembers the day of his ordination, 23 years old, dressed in white linen, standing before the altar as the anointing oil ran down his forehead. His father, also a Levite, had tears in his eyes. "You are chosen," the old man whispered, "to stand between heaven and earth, to keep the covenant alive." Asher had believed it with every fiber of his being. He believed it through the reign of King Manasseh, when pagan altars sprouted in Jerusalem like weeds and the temple was abandoned for half a century. He believed it when young King Josiah rediscovered the Book of the Law and swept through Judah destroying idols, when the temple was cleansed and rededicated. He believed it through good kings and evil kings, through droughts and invasions, through every crisis that made the elders wring their hands and declare, "The Lord is testing us." But now Asher stands in the temple. He served for 53 years, and he feels nothing. Just cold metal under his fingertips, just stone beneath his feet, just smoke from the censers, nothing more mystical than a cooking fire. When did it happen? He wonders. When did the presence leave? Or was it ever really here at all? The question terrifies him more than the Babylonian army outside the walls. Because if God isn't here, if this building is just stone and gold, if the ark is just a box, if the sacrifices are just butchered animals, sending smoke into an empty sky, then what has Asher's entire life meant? He thinks of all the rituals, the endless, meticulous rituals. Every morning for 5 decades, wash in the bronze laver, dress in the prescribed linen, burn the prescribed incense at the prescribed hour, slaughter the lamb, drain the blood, sprinkle it on the altar in the prescribed pattern, sing the prescribed psalms, over and over and over, like a water wheel turning in a river, meaningless motion generating meaningless motion. Am I serving God? Asher thinks, as he sets down the golden basin, or just guarding furniture. He looks around the court of priests. 5 other Levites move through their duties like ghosts, faces hollow with starvation and something worse, the knowledge that their God has not answered. They prayed for deliverance. They offered sacrifices. The high priest entered the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur and emerged with blood on his robes, proclaiming, "The Lord has heard us." But the Babylonians kept coming, and now Jerusalem is a mass grave waiting to be sealed. Asher's youngest daughter died 3 weeks ago. Not from Babylonian swords, from hunger. She was 9 years old. Near the end, her belly had swollen grotesquely, while her arms became sticks. She asked him, "Father, why doesn't God send manna like he did for Moses?" Asher had no answer. He held her hand as she died, and he felt the warmth leave her fingers, and he thought, where were you? He hadn't been able to give her his temple rations. The priests still received a small portion of grain, kept in reserve for the sacred service. To share it would have been a violation of the law. The food was consecrated, holy. His daughter's corpse was not holy, it was just gone. That's when the rot truly set in, the doubt that now eats at Asher's soul like leprosy. What kind of God demands I polish his gold while my child starves? But he doesn't speak this aloud. To voice doubt in the temple is blasphemy. So Asher keeps his questions locked behind his teeth, where they fester and multiply in the darkness, and he goes through the motions of a faith he's not sure he still possesses. He is a keeper of sacred things who no longer knows what sacred means. And then, as the afternoon sun slants through the pillars, casting long shadows across the courtyard, the high priest emerges from the inner sanctuary, Seraiah, grandson of Hilkiah, who found the lost book of the law, a man with the bearing of kings and the eyes of a fanatic. "Asher," he says, and his voice cuts through the torpor like a blade. "The king has sent word. Gather your sons. Tonight we move the ark." Asher's heart, that tired, doubting heart, lurches in his chest. "Move it," his voice cracks. "Where?" Seraiah steps closer. His breath smells of the wine still rationed for the priests, while children outside the walls lick moisture from stones. "Somewhere the Babylonians will never find it," the high priest says. "Somewhere it will wait for 100 years, 1,000 years, until the Lord restores his people." He places a hand on Asher's shoulder, and Asher feels the weight of it like a yoke. "You have been chosen for this, Asher ben Hilkiah, to be the last keeper, to hide God's throne before the temple falls." And Asher thinks, chosen. That word again, But this time, it doesn't feel like an honor. It feels like a sentence. It happens at sunset. 3 long blasts from the ram's horn, but not the shofar of Israel. This is the war trumpet of Babylon, deep and brassy, the sound that has announced the fall of nations from Nineveh to Tyre. The sound that means no more time. Asher is still standing in the courtyard when he hears it. Every priest freezes mid-motion. A young Levite drops the censer he's carrying. It clatters across the stone, spilling coals like drops of liquid fire. From beyond the walls comes another sound, the roar of thousands of voices, Babylonian soldiers crying out in unison. Then, the grinding of wood and iron siege engines rolling forward for the final assault. "They're coming through the northern wall," someone whispers. And then, chaos. Priests scatter like birds before a hawk. Some run toward the inner courts, as if thick stone can save them. Others flee toward the gates, a foolish impulse. There's nowhere to run, nowhere Jerusalem ends, that Babylon doesn't begin. Asher sees old Jeduthun collapse to his knees, hands raised toward heaven, wailing prayers that disappear into the smoke-darkened sky. Where is God when empires fall? Asher's feet carry him not away, but deeper into the temple complex, toward the Holy of Holies, toward the question he's spent years avoiding. The throne room of King Zedekiah is pandemonium. Asher arrives just as the king, young, weak-chinned, a puppet placed on David's throne by Nebuchadnezzar himself before he dared to rebel, is shouting at his generals. The Egyptian reinforcements. Where are the Egyptians? They promised. Egypt has abandoned us, my lord. The general's voice is flat, dead. There will be no relief. Zedekiah's face crumples. This is a man who has played at kingship while real kings circled like wolves. He turns to the high priest Seraiah, desperate. "The Lord will deliver us," Zedekiah says, and it sounds like a child asking his father to make the monsters go away. "The temple, they cannot breach the temple. The Lord dwells here. He will not let. The Lord dwells nowhere stone can contain him," Seraiah interrupts, and his voice cuts through the king's panic like a blade through silk. The high priest stands taller than every man in the room, his robes still immaculate, despite the ash falling like snow outside. In his hand, he holds something Asher recognizes, the Urim and Thummim, the sacred lots used to divine God's will. "I have cast the lots," Seraiah says. "The answer is clear. We must preserve what matters. Before dawn, the Babylonians will break through. They will loot the treasury. They will tear down these walls stone by stone. They will take everything." He pauses, and his eyes sweep across the room until they land on Asher. "Everything except what we hide." King Zedekiah blinks, uncomprehending. "Hide? Hide what?" "The Ark of the Covenant," Seraiah says. "The throne of the living God." The room goes silent. One of the generals, a grizzled warrior named Azariah, steps forward. "You mean to smuggle it out of the city?" "Impossible. The Babylonians have sealed every gate. Every tunnel exit is watched. There are spies even inside these walls." "I do not mean to smuggle it out," Seraiah says calmly. "I mean to hide it in." He gestures to Asher. Beneath the Temple Mount, there are chambers, ancient passages carved by Solomon's masons, older perhaps than Solomon himself. Tunnels that lead to cisterns, to caves, to places the Babylonians do not know exist. Places even we have forgotten. Asher's blood runs cold. He knows what Seraiah is suggesting. There are stories whispered among the older priests of forbidden places beneath the temple, chambers where the sacred and the cursed blur together, where Solomon allegedly hid treasures too dangerous or too holy to name. Passages sealed with warnings in ancient Hebrew, "Do not enter, death dwells here." Legends, ghost stories to frighten young priests. Except now Seraiah is saying they're real. "You want us to go down there," Asher hears himself say, "into the deep places." "I want you to go down there," Seraiah corrects. His eyes bore into Asher with terrible intensity. "You, and 2 others you trust. You will take the ark into the labyrinth beneath God's mountain. You will find a chamber the Babylonians cannot reach, and you will seal it there for a generation or a century, or until the Lord himself returns to reclaim his throne. Asher's mouth is dry as dust. And if we cannot find our way back, Sariah's expression doesn't change. Then you will have given your life in the greatest service a priest can offer. You will become part of the mystery, part of the covenant itself, part of the grave, Asher thinks. Around them, the palace shudders. A battering ram has made contact with the northern gate. The sound echoes through Jerusalem like the beating of a monstrous heart. Boom! King Zedekiah has sunk into his throne, face in his hands. The generals are already moving toward the exits, preparing for the final defense they know is futile. And Asher stands there, an old man who has already lost everything that mattered: his daughter, his faith, his certainty, being asked to descend into darkness carrying a God he's no longer sure exists. Why me? The words escape before he can stop them. Sariah, there are younger priests, stronger men, true believers. Why? Because you doubt. The high priest's answer stops Asher cold. Sariah steps closer, close enough that only Asher can hear his next words. Faith that has never been tested is just naivety, Asher. But doubt that still obeys? His eyes glitter. That is the refining fire. That is what the Lord requires in this hour, not blind zealots who will wave the ark like a battle standard and watch it captured. I need someone who understands what we're really protecting. And what is that? Asher whispers. A promise, Sariah says, that when everything else is lost, throne, temple, city, land, when we are scattered like chaff to the ends of the earth, there is still something that binds us. Something that says, you are mine and I am yours. That's what the ark means, and that is what you will preserve. Another crash, closer now, shouting from the walls. You leave at nightfall, Sariah says. 3 hours. Choose your companions. Tell no one else. Then he sweeps from the room, leaving Asher standing in the wreckage of history, holding a mission he doesn't want and a faith he doesn't possess. Outside, the trumpets of Babylon sound again, and Asher thinks, so this is how it ends. Not in glory, not in deliverance, but in darkness beneath the earth, with doubt as my only companion. He closes his eyes and begins to pray, not for success, but simply for the courage to descend. 3 hours after sunset, Asher stands at the entrance to the forgotten places. He has chosen his companions, Mishael and Azariah, both young Levites in their 20s, both sons of priests who died during the siege. They are lean as famine dogs, but their eyes still hold something Asher's do not believe, or perhaps just youth, which can look very much like faith. Between them, wrapped in layers of consecrated linen, rests the Ark of the Covenant. It is smaller than legend suggests. 3 feet 9 inches long, 2 feet 3 inches wide. But the weight, the physical weight of gold-covered acacia wood, requires 4 men to carry it safely. Tonight, they have only 3. They work in silence. The entrance is hidden beneath the chamber of hewn stone, where the Sanhedrin once met. Sariah showed them earlier a stone slab carved with symbols so old no living priest can read them. When they lever it aside, a darkness breathes up at them, cold and damp, smelling of earth and something else, something ancient, like a tomb, Asher thinks. We're descending into a tomb. Mishael lights the first torch. The flame gutters and struggles, as if the darkness resents the intrusion. Is it true what they say? Azariah whispers. That Solomon hid demons down here, bound them with his ring? Demons are for children's stories, Asher says, but his voice lacks conviction. They lift the ark. The golden carrying poles bite into Asher's shoulders through his robes. Even wrapped, he can feel it, the weight that seems greater than mere gold, as if the object remembers all the centuries it has borne witness to. And then they descend. The first 100 steps are carved stone, ancient but deliberate. Their footfalls echo in the narrow passage. The walls press close on both sides, barely wide enough for the ark to pass. Torchlight dances across limestone, catching veins of something that glitters, quartz, perhaps, or salt deposits from water that seeped through the mountain over countless years. Mishael goes first with the torch. Asher and Azariah follow, supporting the ark between them. Down into the bones of the mountain. The air grows colder. Asher's breath mists in front of his face. Above them, somewhere in the impossible distance, Jerusalem is burning. But down here, there is only silence broken by their breathing and the whisper of their robes against stone. After 200 steps, the carved stairway ends. The tunnel mouth opens into something vast. Mishael raises the torch, and the light doesn't reach the ceiling. They're standing at the edge of a natural cavern, massive and silent. The walls are no longer worked stone but raw limestone, sculpted by water over millennia into twisted columns and hanging formations that look like the melted candles of giants. "Which way?" Azariah asks, and his voice trembles. There are 4 tunnels leading from this chamber, 4 black mouths gaping in the torchlight, each promising deeper darkness. Asher closes his eyes, searching for guidance. A sign, a feeling, anything. Nothing comes. Sariah said to go north, he finally says. Toward the Kidron Valley. There should be chambers there, carved for... He stops. Sariah hadn't actually said what the chambers were carved for. Storage, burial, some other purpose lost to time. They choose the leftmost tunnel and continue. An hour into the labyrinth, Mishael stops. Do you hear that? They all freeze. At first, Asher hears nothing but his own pulse pounding in his ears. Then yes, a sound like distant thunder, but rhythmic, regular. The battering rams, Azariah whispers. We can hear them even down here. They're not far enough yet, not deep enough. The mountain still remembers the surface world, still transmits the violence happening above. Asher feels the weight of stone above them, thousands of tons of rock separating them from the sky. If the tunnel collapses, no one will ever find them. They will become part of the mountain, part of the mystery. Maybe that's the point, he thinks. They press forward. The second hour, the tunnel begins to narrow. The ceiling drops lower. Asher, tallest of the 3, has to duck. The ark scrapes against the walls, and he winces at every scratch on the sacred gold. Though what does it matter now? They're taking it to a place no eye will see it, perhaps forever. Then Mishael stops so suddenly that Asher nearly collides with him. No, the young priest breathes. No, no, no. Asher peers over his shoulder, and his heart sinks. The tunnel ahead has collapsed. Not recently, the fallen stones are crusted with mineral deposits, ancient and settled, but completely. A wall of rubble blocks their path, from floor to ceiling, extending back into darkness farther than the torchlight reaches. We go back, Azariah says immediately. Choose another tunnel. But Asher is staring at the rock fall, and something catches his eye. There, near the floor, on the left side, a gap. Not large, but present. He kneels, bringing the torch closer. There's a space, he says, maybe 3 feet wide. It continues on the other side. You can't be serious, Azariah says. The ark won't fit through that. We can't. We can widen it, Asher interrupts. These stones aren't stable. They've been settling for centuries. If we're not careful, we bring the entire tunnel down on our heads. Asher looks at him, really looks at him. Azariah is terrified and trying to hide it behind practical objections. As am I. Asher realizes, we have no choice, he says quietly. The other tunnels might lead nowhere, might lead to watched exits. This passage goes north. I can feel the slope. It's our best chance. Feel the slope? Azariah's voice rises. You're navigating by feeling? We're lost, Asher. Admit it. We're lost in the dark with the most sacred object in creation, and you're guessing, Then what would you have me do? Asher's voice cracks with sudden fury. Stand here and wait for divine guidance? Wait for a pillar of fire to light our path? I have been waiting for God to speak for 53 years, boy, and all I hear is silence. The words echo in the tunnel, shocking in their blasphemy. Mishael and Azariah stare at him. Asher closes his eyes, ashamed, but also lighter. The truth, once spoken, weighs less than the secret. I am doing the best I can, he says quietly, with the faith I have left, which is very little, but it's all I have to offer. Silence. Then Mishael, sweet, simple Mishael, puts down his torch and begins working at the rocks. Then we widen the gap, he says, together. And despite everything, despite the doubt, despite the fear, despite the absurdity of it all, Asher feels something warm move through his chest. Not God's presence, but something human that might be just as sacred. They begin to dig. It takes them 40 minutes to widen the gap enough to squeeze the ark through. 40 minutes of moving rocks in terrified silence, every shifted stone threatening to bring the ceiling down. Twice, small cascades of pebbles rattle from above, and they freeze like rabbits beneath a hawk's shadow, waiting to be crushed. But the mountain holds. They drag the ark through the opening, scraping gold, tearing linen wrappings, and continue into the tunnel beyond. Behind them, Asher places 3 stones in a careful arrangement, marking their passage. A trail to follow back. If there is a back, 2 hours deeper. Or is it 3? Time becomes meaningless in the absolute dark. The torch burns lower. They have 2 more, only 2, and then there will be nothing but blackness eternal. The tunnel branches again, and again. At each junction, Asher tries to maintain his sense of direction, but the passages curve and twist like the intestines of some vast stone beast. North becomes east, becomes down. The slope that seemed consistent now feels random, climbing, then descending, then level stretches that seem to go nowhere. Mishael's breathing has become ragged. Not from exertion, but from fear barely contained. We should mark the walls, Azariah says. Scratch symbols, so we know we haven't been this way before. What if we have been this way before? Mishael's voice cracks. What if we're going in circles? We're not. How do you know? In the dark, everything looks the same. We could walk past the entrance a dozen times and never see it. We could die down here and no one would ever... Mishael. Asher's voice cuts through the rising panic. Breathe. But the young priest is spiraling. My mother is alone in the city. If I die down here, she'll never know. She'll think I abandoned her. She'll die thinking, your mother knows you serve the Lord, Asher says. But the words feel hollow, even as he speaks them. Serve the Lord. What does that even mean anymore? They continue walking. The silence between them grows heavy with unspoken fears. Then Azariah stops. There, his voice is strange, on the wall. Asher brings the torch closer. Carved into the limestone, barely visible beneath centuries of mineral deposits, are symbols, Hebrew letters. But not modern script. This is ancient, archaic, the kind Asher has only seen in the oldest sections of the Torah scrolls. He traces the letters with trembling fingers, sounding them out. Here the division ends. Beyond lies the deep. Let no man... The rest is obscured by calcification. The deep, Mishael whispers. What does that mean? But there's more. As Asher moves the torch, he sees other inscriptions scattered along the tunnel walls. Some are just single words. Sealed, forbidden, turn back. And one, larger than the others, carved with desperate urgency. They came for knowledge, they did not return. The temperature seems to drop 10 degrees. Who carved these? Azariah asks, but no one answers, because they all know. Priests. Ancient priests who descended into these tunnels long ago, during Solomon's time, or perhaps even earlier. Men who came down here for reasons lost to history and felt compelled to leave warnings. Warnings they're now ignoring. Maybe we should listen, Mishael says quietly. Maybe this is a sign. Maybe God is telling us to go back while we still can. Is he? Asher thinks. Or is this just ancient superstition? Warnings left by frightened men who saw shadows and imagined demons. But another voice in his mind whispers, or perhaps they saw something real, something that still waits in the deeper dark. We continue. Asher hears himself say, the ark cannot stay near the surface. The Babylonians have miners, engineers. If they suspect anything is hidden beneath the temple, they'll dig. These deep places, whatever they are, they're our only chance. Our only chance to die unknown deaths, Azariah mutters, but he hoists the ark anyway. They press forward, past the warnings, into the deep. The tunnel opens into another cavern, and here they find something that stops them cold. Bonnis. Not a few. Dozens. Perhaps hundreds. Scattered across the cavern floor like autumn leaves, white and ancient, some still partially articulated into rib cages and spines. Dear God, Mishael breathes, and he drops to his knees, nearly dropping his end of the ark. Asher forces himself to look closer, though every instinct screams to run. The bones are human, but old, impossibly old, crumbling at the touch. And there, among the remains, scraps of fabric that might once have been priestly robes, bronze tools corroded to green stains, and something that makes his blood freeze. A crown, simple, bronze, verdigris eaten, but unmistakably royal. Who came down here? The question pounds in Asher's skull. What king descended into these depths and never emerged? This is wrong, Azariah says, and his voice is shaking now too. This is all wrong. Asher, these aren't just explorers or grave robbers. These were, anointed, Asher finishes. The word tastes like ash. These were anointed men. Priests, maybe kings. They came seeking something, and found only death, Mishael finishes. The three of them stand there, the torchlight casting their shadows long and distorted across the bone field. The ark rests between them, golden and gleaming, absurdly beautiful in this charnel house. And Asher feels the full weight of the question he's been avoiding since they descended. What are we really doing here? Is this divine mission? Or is it the death throes of a failed nation, grown men playing at hide-and-seek with God's furniture while their world burns? Is faith guiding them? Or just pride, the arrogance of priests who cannot admit their temple was nothing but stone, their sacrifices nothing but theater, their covenant nothing but a story we told ourselves to make sense of the darkness? Sariah said we were preserving a promise, Asher says aloud, testing the words. But what if there is no promise? What if we're just hiding evidence of our failure? The blasphemy hangs in the air. Then we're fools, Azariah says quietly. We're fools dying in the dark for nothing. Or, Mishael says, and his voice is steadier now, we're the faithful remnant, the ones who keep the covenant even when God seems absent. Isn't that what Abraham did? What Job did? They held on when it made no sense. Asher looks at the young priest, really looks at him. When did he become the strong one? How do you still believe? Asher asks. After everything, Mishael is quiet for a long moment. Then, I don't know if I do. Believe, I mean. Not the way the high priest talks about it, like he knows God's mind, but I'm here. I'm carrying this. And that has to mean something, doesn't it? The fact that we choose to do this even when we're terrified. The fact that we choose to do this even when we're terrified. Asher closes his eyes, and he thinks of his daughter, how she asked about manna, how she died without an answer. But she died believing her father served something greater than himself. Even if that something was just a story, maybe the telling of it mattered. Maybe that's what covenant means, not that God speaks from clouds, but that humans keep speaking into the silence. We need to keep moving, he finally says, before the torch burns out. They navigate around the bones, careful not to disturb the ancient dead. As they leave the cavern, Asher glances back once, and he could swear, though it might be just the flickering light, that the skull of the crowned figure is turned toward them, watching them descend deeper, into the labyrinth that has no end. They hear the voices before they see the light, distant, echoing through the stone maze, speaking Akkadian, the language of Babylon. All three priests freeze. No, Azariah breathes. They couldn't have found the entrance. They couldn't. But even as he says it, orange torchlight flickers in the tunnel behind them. Multiple torches, moving fast. Swore he saw priests carrying something down here. Golden chest, he said. Enough gold to buy a province. They're not soldiers. Asher realizes this immediately from the accent, the dialect. These are the camp followers, the mercenaries and treasure hunters who trail in Babylon's wake like jackals following lions. Men who've heard the legends of Solomon's wealth, who know the temple was stripped but are searching for the secret caches, the hidden vaults. And somehow, through betrayal or luck or sheer persistence, they've found the entrance. Run, Asher hisses. They run. But running with the ark is like running while carrying your own coffin. The golden poles dig into their shoulders. Mishael in front stumbles on loose rocks, nearly dropping his end. Behind them, the voices grow louder, excited now they've spotted the torchlight ahead. There, I see them. Don't let them escape that Solomon's gold. The tunnel branches left and right. Asher chooses left on pure instinct, plunging them into a passage so narrow they have to turn the ark sideways. Behind them, the Babylonian hunters curse as they struggle to follow. How many? Azariah gasps. 5, Michelle says. Maybe 6. 6 men, armed, desperate for plunder, against 3 priests, unarmed, carrying an object they cannot drop. The mathematics of survival are brutally simple. The passage opens into another cavern, and Asher's heart sinks. 3 exits. 3 identical black mouths, no markings, no signs. Which way? Mishael shouts. Behind them, the sound of boots on stone. Closer now, terrifyingly close. Asher's mind races. The wrong choice could lead them into a dead end, trap them like animals. But standing here deciding is certain death. Middle, he gasps. Go. They plunge into the center tunnel. It descends sharply. The floor slick with moisture. Azariah's foot skids out from under him. He falls hard, and the ark crashes to the ground with a sound like thunder in the enclosed space. Get up! Asher hauls him to his feet. Move! But precious seconds have been lost. As they lift the ark again, torchlight floods the cavern behind them. Shadows, human shadows, distorted and monstrous dance across the walls. There, the shout is triumphant. Hunting. A spear whistles through the air. It strikes the tunnel wall inches from Mishael's head, sparking against stone. They're close enough to throw. The tunnel curves right, then left, then opens into something that makes Asher want to weep. A chasm, stretching across their path like a wound in the earth, too wide to jump, too deep for the torchlight to illuminate the bottom. The sound of water echoes up from below, an underground river flowing through the mountain's heart. No, Azariah moans. No, no, no. But there Mishael spots it. A natural stone bridge, barely 3 feet wide, spanning the gap, slick with moisture, crumbling at the edges. We can't cross that with the ark, Azariah says. It's impossible. We don't have a choice, Asher snaps. Behind them, voices getting closer. One of the hunters is laughing, a sound that echoes obscenely in the dark. Cornered them. They're cornered. My share is the crown piece. I claim it. Mishael is already stepping onto the bridge. One at a time, he says. I'll cross first, you pass the ark. No, Asher interrupts. A plan desperate, terrible has formed in his mind. No, you and Azariah take the ark across. Together, I'll hold them here. Both young priests stare at him. "Hold them?" Azariah's voice cracks. "You're unarmed. They'll kill you." "Yes," Asher says simply. And in that moment, he feels something he hasn't felt in years, certainty. But they'll be delayed, long enough for you to cross and continue, long enough to hide the ark where it needs to be hidden. "We can't leave you." "You can. You will." Asher's voice is iron now. "This is why I was chosen, Azariah, not because I have faith, but because I know what matters. And I know I'm an old man whose life is already over. But that," he gestures to the ark, "that's bigger than me, bigger than all of us." Mishael's eyes are wet with tears. "Asher, go." Asher shoves them toward the bridge. "Now." They go. Asher watches them step onto the stone bridge. Mishael in front, Azariah behind. The ark suspended between them. Their silhouettes, against the darkness of the chasm, three figures becoming two, becoming one, becoming shadows. Then he turns to face the hunters. They emerge from the tunnel like rats from a burning building. 6 of them, just as Mishael estimated. Babylonian irregulars, mercenaries, the human debris of empire. One carries a bronze short sword, another a spear. The others have clubs and daggers. More than enough to kill one old priest. Asher spreads his arms, blocking the tunnel mouth, and he laughs. The sound surprises even him, a genuine laugh, born of exhaustion and terror, and the strange liberation that comes from accepting death. "Come then," he says in Akkadian flawless, learned from years of reading the prophecies about Babylon. "Come and claim Solomon's gold, if you can get past a 70-year-old man." The lead hunter, a scarred brute with missing teeth, grins. "Old man, step aside. We don't want you. We want what you're protecting." "Then take it," Asher says, "if you dare cross that bridge." He steps backward onto the stone span. Behind him, 50 feet away now, Mishael and Azariah have nearly reached the other side. "Just a little longer. Just hold them a little longer." The hunters hesitate. They can see the bridge now, see how narrow it is, see the darkness yawning below. "It's a trap," one mutters. "Cowards," the leader spits. Then, to Asher, "You'll die for nothing, priest. We'll cross anyway. We'll catch your friends. We'll take the gold and sell it to the highest bidder, and your God won't lift a finger to stop us." "Perhaps," Asher says, "but you'll have to get past me first." The hunter laughs and charges. Asher has never been a fighter. 53 years of ritual and study don't prepare a man for violence. When the hunter's fist crashes into his jaw, Asher's vision explodes white. He staggers backward and his foot slips. For one eternal moment, he hangs over the chasm. His arms windmill. His heel finds the edge of the stone. And then hands grab him, but not to save. To push, Asher falls. The world becomes a confusion of dark and light, spinning. He glimpses torchlight above, Mishael's scream echoing from the far side, the hunter's triumphant face. Then water. Ice cold, shocking. The underground river swallows him whole. The current seizes him immediately, dragging him under, tumbling him like a leaf in a flood. His robes tangle around his legs, his lungs scream for air. He breaks surface once, gasps, sees stone rushing past on both sides. And then he's pulled under again, swept deeper into the mountain's darkness. His last thought before consciousness fades, "I held them. Long enough for the ark to..." Darkness takes him. On the far side of the bridge, Mishael and Azariah have reached safety. They set down the ark and turn back just in time to see Asher fall. Mishael screams, a sound that tears from his throat like fabric ripping. The hunters are on the bridge now, crossing carefully, eyes fixed on the golden chest ahead. "We have to go back," Mishael sobs. "We have to save him. He's gone." Azariah's voice is hollow. "He bought us time. If we waste it, he died for nothing." "But..." "Lift the ark." Mishael's face crumples. but he lifts his end of the carrying pole. And together, weeping, the two young priests carry the Ark of the Covenant deeper into the labyrinth, leaving their teacher to the water and the dark and the silence that has no end. Behind them, the hunters follow. But they're far enough ahead now, far enough to disappear into the maze. Asher's sacrifice was not in vain. Asher wakes to absolute darkness, not the darkness of night, which still holds stars, not the darkness of closed eyes, which holds memory and dream. This is the darkness of the deep earth, total and suffocating, as if darkness itself has weight and substance. He's alive, somehow, impossibly alive. The river spat him out. He doesn't know where, doesn't know how long he was unconscious. His body is battered, every muscle screaming. His left arm won't move properly, but his lungs draw air, and his heart beats, and he exists. He lies there on wet stone, tasting blood and mineral, and he laughs. A broken, croaking laugh that sounds like madness. I should be dead. I fell. I drowned. I should be dead. But he's not. And in that moment, lying in darkness so complete it's like being blind, bones aching, alone in the earth's bowels, Asher feels something shift inside his chest. Not the presence of God. Nothing so dramatic. Just acceptance. He tried, he failed, he fell, and yet here he is, still breathing, still capable of moving forward. Maybe that's what faith actually is, he thinks. Not certainty, not knowing, just getting up one more time. He forces himself to sit up. His fingers search the stone around him, and they find something, his torch. Waterlogged, useless. But wait, flint, the pouch at his belt, miraculously still there. Oil-soaked cloth wrapped in wax. His hands shake as he works. 3 attempts, 4. Then, spark. A tiny flame catches, grows, illuminates a space barely 10 feet across. A grotto. An air pocket where the river slows before continuing into deeper channels. And there, in the corner, half buried in silt, the reflection of gold. Asher's breath catches. He crawls forward, ignoring the pain, and he sees it clearly now, a carrying pole. One of the ark's golden carrying poles, torn free during the fall, washed downstream to this place. Which means the river connects to wherever Mishael and Azariah went. Which means, if he follows it, hope, that dangerous thing, flickers in his chest. He pulls himself to his feet. The grotto has 2 exits, the river continuing downward, and a narrow crawl space leading up toward drier passages. He follows the upward path. Time becomes meaningless again. He crawls through spaces barely wide enough for his shoulders. He squeezes through crevices that scrape skin from his back. The makeshift torch burns lower. Soon it will die, and he'll be blind again. But then, voices, faint, echoing through stone, not Akkadian this time. Hebrew. Can't go any farther. Must keep trying. Mishael, Azariah. Asher's voice cracks when he calls their names. Mishael, Azariah. Silence. Then, Asher. Mishael's voice, disbelieving. Asher. Following the sound, Asher emerges into a passage, and there they are, both alive, both weeping with relief at the sight of him, this old priest who should be dead but isn't. They embrace him, and for a moment, they're just 3 men who have survived the impossible together. Then Asher sees what lies beyond them, the ark, and behind it, a chamber. It's not natural, someone carved it. The walls are smooth, worked by ancient hands. The ceiling is vaulted, shaped like the inside of a vast stone egg, and everywhere covering every surface are inscriptions. Hebrew, but not like the warnings they saw before. These are prayers, hundreds of them, thousands, carved by countless hands over countless years, layer upon layer, words carved over words, until the stone is a palimpsest of devotion. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Prayers Asher has recited his entire life. But here, in this hidden place, they feel different, raw, urgent, as if the people who carved them when? 1,000 years ago? 2,000? Carved them with desperate hands, needing to leave their faith written in stone because everything else had failed them. In the center of the chamber, a natural stone platform rises from the floor, perfectly sized, as if it were waiting. This is it, Azariah whispers. This is where we hide it. And Asher knows he's right. Not because a voice from heaven told him, not because angels descended to guide them, but because this place feels right, feels like the end of a journey that began in doubt and ends in something else. Not certainty, but commitment. Together, they lift the ark one final time and place it on the stone platform. The gold gleams in the torchlight. Beautiful, enigmatic. Just a box made by human hands, filled with stone tablets carved by human hands, representing a covenant between humans and something they could never fully comprehend. And maybe that's okay, Asher thinks. Mishael finds tools left by whoever first carved this chamber. Ancient bronze chisels, still usable. And together, the three priests begin to seal the entrance. They work in silence at first, moving stones, building a wall that will hide the chamber's mouth. Then, Azariah starts to sing softly, one of the psalms carved on the walls. Mishael joins him. And finally, Asher adds his voice, cracked and weary. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. As they sing, Asher realizes this is worship, not the elaborate temple rituals with their gold and incense. Just three broken men, singing in the dark, choosing to complete a task they don't fully understand because the alternative is to give up. And giving up would mean Asher's daughter died for nothing, that the covenant was a lie, that all the suffering had no meaning. So they sing, and they build, and stone by stone they wall up the Ark of the Covenant, sealing it in darkness, perhaps forever. When the last stone is placed, Mishael carves one final inscription above the sealed entrance. Here rests the throne, until the Lord returns. Simple, true. They stand there, the three of them, staring at what they've accomplished. Somewhere far above, Jerusalem is burning. The temple is falling. An empire is ending. But here, in the deep places of the earth, something has been preserved. Not just gold and wood, but the idea that even when everything collapses, even when God seems silent, humans can choose to keep the covenant alive, can choose to believe that the story isn't over. How do we get out? Mishael asks quietly. Asher looks at the passages leading from this chamber. Three of them, dark, unknown. We walk, he says, and we trust that if we were meant to get here, we're meant to get out. And if we're not? Azariah asks. Asher thinks about his daughter, about faith, about the difference between knowing and hoping. Then we become part of the mystery, he says, part of what we protected. And somehow, that's enough. They choose a passage, the one that slopes upward, toward air and light and life, and they begin to climb. Behind them, the ark sits in darkness, waiting for a day that may never come. But the covenant walks out with them, carried in their hearts, written in their scars, alive in the choice they made to descend into hell and do what needed doing. Even without certainty, even without proof. That's what faith looks like when everything else is stripped away. They emerge 3 days later, not through the entrance they descended. That passage is sealed by Babylonian rubble, the Temple Mount above it reduced to smoking ruin. Instead, they crawl out through a forgotten cistern in the Kidron Valley, blinking like newborns into grey dawn light. Jerusalem is gone. Not damaged, not conquered, gone. The walls are rubble. The palaces are ash. Solomon's temple, that wonder of the ancient world, 46 years in the building, the dwelling place of God, is a skeleton of blackened stone. The golden pillars, Jachin and Boaz, have been toppled and hauled away. The bronze sea has been smashed into portable pieces. Even the stones themselves are being pried loose, because Nebuchadnezzar wants no trace of Hebrew glory left standing. Smoke rises from 1,000 fires. Bodies lie in the streets, uncounted and unburied. The stench is overwhelming. And everywhere, Babylonian soldiers, herding survivors into chains, loading wagons with plunder, laughing. Asher, Mishael, and Azariah crouch in the cistern opening, too exhausted to feel the full weight of what they're witnessing. They're alive. Against all probability, they're alive. The city of David, Mishael whispers. Gone. Azariah's face is stone. And we saved a box. There's no bitterness in his voice, just statement of fact. They descended into hell to hide a golden chest while the world above them ended. What did it matter? What did any of it matter? Asher opens his mouth to respond and realizes he has no answer. Or rather, he has an answer, but it's not one he can speak yet. It's still forming inside him, like a seed pushing through hard earth, not ready to bloom, but undeniably alive. They wait until nightfall, then slip into the ruined city, moving like ghosts through a graveyard. Past homes they once knew, now burned to foundations. Past the marketplace where Asher bought bread just months ago, now a field of rubble. Past the palace where they received their mission. King Zedekiah is gone, captured, while trying to flee. The Babylonians caught him near Jericho. They made him watch as they slaughtered his sons, then blinded him and dragged him to Babylon in chains. The last thing Judah's final king saw was the death of his heirs. The high priest Sariah, executed. Along with the chief priest and 3 temple gatekeepers, their bodies displayed as warnings. Everyone who gave the order to hide the ark is dead, which means only 3 men in the world know where it rests. And as Asher picks his way through the ruins, he understands this is how it had to be. The ark is not meant to be found, not by the Babylonians, not by future generations, maybe not ever, because if they found it, what would they do? Parade it like a trophy, lock it in a museum, build a new temple around it, and make the same mistakes all over again? No. The ark's purpose was never the box itself. It was what the box represented God's promise to be with his people. And that promise doesn't live in wood and gold. It lives in the fact that Asher is still here, still breathing, still capable of choosing to honor something bigger than himself. They find Mishael's mother among the survivors. She's being herded toward the exile line, thousands of Jerusalem's inhabitants chained together for the long march to Babylon. When she sees her son, she collapses. They embrace, and Asher looks away, giving them privacy in this moment. Azariah's family is dead, all of them. He learns this from a neighbor, his father killed defending the northern gate, his mother and sisters dead from starvation in the final weeks. He receives the news with a nod. No tears left, just emptiness. What do we do now? He asks Asher. And Asher looks at this young man, this boy, really, who descended into darkness and came out the other side, and he says, "We live." Live? Azariah's laugh is bitter. For what? To be slaves in Babylon? To forget our language, our laws, our God? No, Asher says, and his voice is stronger now, more certain than it's been in years. To remember. That's what we do. We remember who we are. We tell our children, and they tell theirs. We write down the stories. We keep the prayers. We remain Jewish even when there's no temple, no king, no land. He gestures at the ruins around them. They took the building. They took the gold. They think they've won. But the covenant, the actual covenant, isn't something that can be conquered. It's not in a box. It's in us. In the choice we make every day to remain faithful to who we are. Mishael looks up. But the Ark is safe, Asher says, hidden where it needs to be hidden, and maybe that's the whole point. Maybe we needed to lose the physical thing so we could understand the spiritual truth. God doesn't dwell in temples made by hands. He dwells in the spaces between us when we choose to honor him anyway. It's the answer that's been forming in him since the moment he placed the Ark on that stone platform. The lesson carved into him through doubt and dissent and almost death. Faith begins when evidence ends. When there's no temple, no miracles, no clear divine intervention, that's when faith actually means something. Anyone can believe when God splits seas and rains manna, but believing in the silence, keeping the covenant when there's nothing to prove it's real except your own commitment, that's the refining fire Sariah spoke of. That's what separates belief from superstition. The Babylonians come for them at dawn. They're rounded up with the others, chained, prepared for exile. As Asher shuffles forward in the line, he catches one last glimpse of the Temple Mount, just a hill now, crowned with broken stone and ash. And he smiles, because somewhere beneath that hill, in a chamber no one will find for 2,000 years, if ever the Ark waits. Not needed, not necessary, just there. A testament to the moment when faith had to become more than object worship. The chains are heavy on his wrists. The road to Babylon stretches before him, long and cruel. But Asher walks it with something he hasn't felt in decades. Peace. Not because he knows God is with him, but because he chooses to believe it, even without proof. And in that choice, that daily, difficult choice to keep covenant when nothing in the world confirms it, the sacred lives on. They can exile the people. They can burn the temple. They can search forever for the Ark and never find it. But they cannot kill the covenant, because the covenant was never about gold. It was always about this: humans choosing, in the face of silence and suffering and doubt, to say, "I am still here, and so are you."